Welcome to the Healing While Discovering Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Michelle. I'm an intuitive transformational coach, certified life coach, certified NLP practitioner, and speaker. I've spent the last 22 plus years helping myself and my clients learn how to create their own happiness and live more abundant lives. In this time, I've also overcome and healed from child sexual molestation, a compulsive eating disorder, hunger, and homelessness. Now it's your turn to move forward with your life and heal from childhood traumas or past experiences. In this podcast, I'll share how I was able to overcome all of my past struggles, as well as my personal stories of overcoming jealousy, loneliness, resentment, and bitterness, and how I learned to forgive. I'll also help you explore your shadow self, deal with having low or no self-esteem, and address feelings of not being worthy or loved. Using my personal experiences and extensive training, as well as stories of grief, loss, depression, and anxiety from my guests, I'll help you change your life and finally heal. Hey, loves. Welcome back to another episode of the Healing While Discovering Yourself podcast. I am so grateful that you are here. I'm so glad that you are joining me. And what many of you may or may not know, but I'm actually recording this podcast live. Well, by the time you hear it, if you're listening on a different platform other than my Facebook group, it's not recorded live, but I'm actually live in my private Facebook group, Healing While Discovering Yourself private group, because I want to talk about something that I think is extremely important. And if you are new here, if you're new to the Healing While Discovering Yourself podcast, let me say welcome. I am so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you decided to hit play, to show up for yourself, to either begin or continuing your healing journey. And if this is your first episode, I am going to ask you to go back and listen to at least the first 3 to 4 episodes before you decide whether or not you want to continue listening, because I think you'll learn a lot about me in those first few episodes. Well, I mean, actually, if I'm honest, if you listen to me, you will probably always learn a lot about me, because I always use myself as an example before I use any of my clients, because of the personal nature of the work that I do. All right, y'all, now that is out of the way, let's talk about today's episode. And if you have ever found yourself saying, whether it's you're saying it to yourself, whether you're saying it to a family member, whether you're saying it in your head, it doesn't matter. If you have ever said, but other people have had it worse than me, or if you've even ever said, other people have had it worse, or other people have it worse, or my experience is not so bad because it could have been much worse, then this podcast episode is for you. Because one of the greatest barriers, at least in my experience, as it relates to the healing and self-discovery journey, is that people minimize their own experience. And the problem with minimizing your own experience, whether you classify it as traumatic or not, you also prevent yourself from healing the very thing that you need to heal from, right? When you say other people have had it worse, number one, you're comparing yourself. And I don't know about you, but based on my own experience, anytime you compare yourself to someone else, you've already lost. You've already lost, because there is someone who will always have it worse than you, right? And if someone has had it worse than you, then you can either look at yourself like, oh, well, I shouldn't complain and it's not so bad, or You can like gas your own self up, be like, haha, look at me. See, I don't have it that bad. But then the other side of that, if you look at it like other people have it better than me, right? Because that's what comparison is. Other people have it better than me, then you discourage yourself, right? And you look at all of the things that you don't have instead of considering all of the things that you do have. So that's why it's dangerous, number one, to even begin to think, with that statement or use that statement, other people have it or other people had it worse than me. Now, let me be clear. If you found yourself saying that, don't feel guilty, don't feel ashamed, don't feel bad that that's what you said, right? Don't feel bad that that's how you feel, because if you said it to yourself, then clearly it's how you feel. Because if you didn't feel that way, if you didn't believe that, then you wouldn't have said it, right? But I don't want you to feel bad or feel guilty because you've had those thoughts, because truth be told, all of us, at least all of us that are on the healing journey have had those same thoughts at one point. At one point, we have all had those same thoughts, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are today. So if you've had these thoughts, let's not guilt yourself. Let's not beat yourself up over having those thoughts about your experience, okay? The other thing that I want to note is that when you look at it from the viewpoint of other people have had it worse, or other people have it present day worse than me, you are basically compartmentalizing. I guess maybe that's not even the exact word that I want to use, but for the sake of finding a better term, that's the word I'll use. Maybe it's classifying, but I'll finish talking and we'll see where I land, because the exact word is not coming to me now. But when you look at it from this viewpoint of other people have it worse than me, what you're doing is, I've already said, you're minimizing your experiences, but you're also judging your own experiences, right? You're judging your experience. And I don't know about you, but anytime I have found myself in a position of judgment, it has not benefited me. Anytime I have found myself judging either myself or someone else, it has always ultimately been to my own detriment. And so when you look at your experience and you minimize it and you say that other people have it worse than me, then you are basically judging your experiences. And if you are judging your experiences, there is no way that you are going to give yourself the grace that you need to begin healing yourself. So as long as you have this attitude of other people have had it worse than me, then you're judging yourself. And again, if you are judging yourself, you cannot hear this. And I don't even like to use the word can't, right? But you cannot give yourself what you need because you're too critical of yourself. You're judging yourself. Judgment has never helped any of us. Judgment has never helped any of us, right? So when you say that about your experience, other people, you are judging your experience. And when you judge your experience, you will never give yourself the grace that you need. So it's important that as you travel on this healing journey, that you don't look at your experience, because the truth of the matter is all of us are in need of healing. All of us. I've been on this healing and self-discovery journey for over 22 years now. And let me tell you that I don't ever want to get off on it, because I understand that when I am done with the healing and self-discovery journey, then my next breath will be in eternity. Then it means that I will have transitioned to the other side, and I have not completed or fulfilled my purpose yet on this earth. And so I am not ready to go anywhere. And so for that, I will continually be on the healing and self-discovery journey. And I will give myself the grace that I need to complete the journey, right? Until I reach my destination, until my soul has learned all of the lessons that it needs to learn in this physical body. And should it choose, if you believe, to carry on and reincarnate, then so be it, right? So it's important for you to understand that, yes, other people may have had it worse, but even that is none of your business. How other people have had it is none of your business. And if I'm being 100% with you, it's actually irresponsible. Again, don't feel bad if you've done it. Do not feel bad if you've done it. But it's irresponsible of you to even look at it and say, but other people have had it worse. Because when you do that, you're not taking responsibility for your own healing, right? And as I said before, this is the number one barrier for people beginning their healing and self-discovery journey. You know, back in March, I hosted my very first virtual inner child healing retreat. And I'm going to be hosting one again, June 14th through the 18th, right? And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to innerchildhealing.co, innerchildhealing.co. But one of the things that I realized while we were going through the retreat is what was preventing people from going deeper on their journey, if you will, is that they were looking at their experiences and they were classifying it as either big T trauma or little t trauma. And I know that that's popular now, where people are saying, oh, I've had big T trauma or I've had little t trauma. I know that's popular to say that now. At the same time, it's extremely dangerous. And I'm saying this from the perspective of a trauma-sensitive coach, right? I am not just someone who decided one day that I wanted to coach people and I just started talking to people. For those of you who don't know, first of all, I do have my MBA, Master's of Business Administration. I spent 15 years in the corporate world, successfully climbing the ladder as an accountant. While I was working full time, I decided to get my life coaching certification, which I did. After I retired, I decided to become certified as an NLP practitioner. NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. It's just a pattern interrupt, just interrupts patterns at the unconscious level, right? Because that's where everything happens at an unconscious level. Change happens, behavior happens, habits are formed at an unconscious level. So I'm a certified NLP practitioner. And then I also decided that I wanted to deepen my own practice, deepen my own knowledge. So I then went back to become a master certified life coach. And so In addition to all of those other things, I'm a master certified life coach, and I am currently, a few hours ago, I finished a training in which we meet weekly to become a trauma sensitive certified coach. So when I'm talking to you about these things, I'm not telling you these things just from an experiential standpoint, although I believe that experience is vitally important, because how can you teach on something and share something if you don't have the practical real world experience, right? So in addition to speaking to you from an experiential standpoint, I'm also coming to you from an academic standpoint, if you will. So back to classifying our trauma as big T and little t trauma, and why it is dangerous is because, as I've been saying throughout this episode, it minimizes our own experience. It minimizes our own experience. And when we minimize our experience, then we can't deal with them, right? You can't heal what you don't deal with. If you don't deal with it, you can't heal it, right? If you don't acknowledge something, then you're not going to do anything with it because you don't even acknowledge it. You don't even recognize that this is what's happening, right? So you can't, and I want to be careful, because also as a trauma sensitive coach, I don't want to tell people like how to respond to their trauma, right? I don't want to tell people how to respond to their trauma. And so that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the response, right? Something happens and you react, you respond. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I am talking about is classifying or minimizing that trauma, the things that you experience, right? Saying that, oh my gosh, well, nobody died when I was little. I was just sick a lot, which is okay, because this is little t trauma, because big T trauma, nobody died, right? And so that's why it's so important for us not to classify our experience as big T trauma and little t trauma. And we just need to understand it and appreciate it as our experience. That's because really that's what it is. It's our own experience. And this is important to note, because what is traumatic for one person may not be traumatic for another person. And it's important to note this also because the thing about our traumatic experience, y'all, is this. The thing about our traumatic experience is this. Sometimes it's not the thing that happened to us. It's not that thing. But it's how the people around us responded to us when that thing happened, right? Because for me, and I've shared this before, for me, when I was molested as a little girl, I mean, that in and of itself is traumatic. Please don't read me wrong. That was traumatic. But when I think back on the experience, or when I was healing from it, and now from a healed perspective, and even from a more intellectual perspective, I look back at the experience and I'm like, like after it happened, every adult around me, including the one who did it to me, acted like nothing happened. And the thing about it is, like, nobody knew, right? But then as a little girl, it was like, well, nobody knows, right? Mama didn't protect me. Daddy didn't protect me. Like, no one protected me. So even though that, in this case, that experience itself was traumatic, but even thinking back on how the adults around me responded or a lack thereof a response from them contributed to my experience. Another example of it's not necessarily what happens, but what the adults do afterwards is, I was called nigger in kindergarten. And when I went and told the teacher that Derek, blonde hair, blue eyes, called me a nigger, she looked at me and laughed and told me to go sit back down, right? And that was the beginning of my inferiority complex because I'm like, oh. And then I felt wrong. I felt like I did the wrong thing by going to tell her because she did nothing about it, right? So it wasn't necessarily that this little kid called me that, but it's that the teacher, the authority, the adult did nothing about it, but really made me feel bad by telling me to go sit back down as if nothing happened. So that's why it's vitally important for us not to classify our trauma as big T and little t, because all trauma needs to be healed. And this is true whether you identify it as trauma or not. It makes no difference. It makes no difference whether you see your past experiences as trauma, right? And I also want to be careful when I say that it makes no difference, because again, I'm not talking about your response, right? Because however you respond to the trauma is valid. When I was molested as a little girl, to protect myself, I turned to food, right? To protect myself, I gained a lot of weight, and even at one point in my life, I was 262 pounds, like 262 pounds. And I look at my body now and I'm still a little fluffy and I'm okay with that. I don't mind a little fluff, right? But I think back to and I see pictures of what 262 pounds looked like. And I'm just like, dang. But that was a protection response, right? It was a defense mechanism. And here's what's funny, y'all. Here's what's great about the healing and self-discovery journey, that even as I'm talking to y'all about this experience, I just had another revelation. I legit just had another revelation. And I'm going to process this revelation. And once I process it, I'll share it with y'all, because y'all know I share everything, but I never share from a place of unprocessed information or unprocessed knowledge. But I just received another revelation as I'm sitting here, and I'm so excited to process it. And when I process it, I will 100% share with y'all. But again, that's the beauty of the healing and self-discovery journey, is that we're always healing and we're always discovering. We're always healing and always discovering. And to me, for my life, for my calling, for my purpose, it is so important for me to be as open and as transparent as possible. Because in doing so, it helps me to heal. And it's the same thing for you. I promise you it is, that when you heal, right? And really, truly, or as you heal and as you discover who you are, things will come to you, and they will. But back to this idea of other people having it worse and big T and little t trauma. It's so important to look at your experience and say that my experience was my experience, or is my experience. My experience is my experience. And you don't have to judge your experience by saying that other people have it or other people had it worse. You don't have to judge or analyze your experience by saying, well, this is big T trauma and this is little T trauma. Because again, what's big T trauma for one person can be little T trauma to someone else. And the opposite of that is true. Like you can have two people. Both people moved around a lot in childhood. One person can view that experience as, oh my gosh, I got to meet so many new people, right? And the other person can view that experience as, oh my gosh, it was so traumatic because we moved around so much, right? And I'm sure if we were to create an even greater story, we will probably find that the person who saw the experience of, oh my gosh, it was great, I got to meet new people, probably had supportive adults and their environment, which took an experience that could have been traumatic from being one of trauma to being one of adventure. And if we take the person who moved around a lot and it was a traumatic experience for them, we will probably find adults in that experience who also experienced trauma as a result of always moving around, whether it was poverty or abuse or whatever it is, right? And so we have to look at our lives, and you have to look at your experiences and say, again, my experiences are what they are. And that's just that. That's just that. So I hope this helped you out with your tendency. Again, if you have the tendency to say it or do it, it's okay. Don't be mad at yourself. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel ashamed. But I hope this helped you out with your tendency to say other people had it worse. Because yes, I'm sure other people had it worse. And other people also have it better. Right? Right. But we don't really say that other people have it better, because then that would mean we got to step up to the plate and we should actually do something. And that's not to say that people are innately lazy or avoiding or being irresponsible, right? Because all of us have been conditioned. All of us have been conditioned. That's just plain and simple. But the truth is we have a responsibility, and we can make the choice to not respond from that conditioned place. We can always choose. There's always choice, right? There's always choice. And if you believe in God and in free will, then you know that that's 100% true, that there is always a choice. You can always choose differently. And so the next time you find yourself saying other people have had it worse, just remember that you don't want to minimize your experience, and that it's okay that other people have had it worse. Again, this is not to judge other people's experience, but it's to say that it's okay. And my experience is my experience. And even if you do still want to say that other people have had it worse, you can say, oh man, other people have had it worse, and my experience was also painful, right? Or my experience was also traumatic, right? It can be a both and. It doesn't have to be either or, right? It doesn't have to be but either or. It can be both and, right? Two things. They're not mutually exclusive. Other people can experience it worse, and your experience can be equally traumatic. It's that simple, right? So again, I really do hope this helped you out. And again, I've been thinking about this since I did my last inner child healing retreat, and just really sitting with the responses and reflecting on that. And I wanted to really, truly formulate this thought and this idea before I even presented it, which is why I'm doing it now. And then also I'm doing another virtual inner child healing retreat, June 14th through June 18th. And so in perfecting, if you will, and I use perfecting in air quotes and use the term loosely, the content, I wanted to make sure that I talk about this now so that as people begin their healing journey, that they know that, again, and this is not about other people's experience, they know that other people have had it worse and you still experience pain and trauma too. And we don't have to minimize it. All right, y'all. So I'm going to go, but that's what I wanted to say. If you have enjoyed this podcast episode, then I am going to ask you to share it, rate it, and review it. And if you're not a part of the Healing While Discovering Yourself Facebook group, why don't you just go ahead and go on Facebook and in the search engine, put Healing While Discovering Yourself under groups, and it should come up for you. And then if you're interested in exploring healing a little deeper, then I'm going to invite you to sign up for my virtual or get on the wait list. There's an announcement coming out later today if you're on the wait list for my virtual inner child healing retreat. But I suppose when this episode does go live, registration will be open. So that being said, go to innerchildhealing.co, innerchildhealing.co, and make sure you sign up for the virtual inner child healing retreat. And just know that the love in me salutes the love in you.
Hey loves, are you looking for a safe place to hang out while you're healing with other like-minded individuals? If so, then I would love for you to join my private Facebook community called Healing While Discovering Yourself, named after the podcast. This community is for those who are truly seeking a safe place to heal and also show up authentically. If this interests you, then I'm going to invite you to go to Facebook/groups/Healing While Discovering. I look forward to seeing you in the group. Tony Robbins said, "The quality of your life is a direct reflection of the quality of the questions you're asking yourself." And that's why I'm inviting you to download my free guide called 5 Powerful Questions to Ask Yourself to help you take back control of your life. In this guide, you will learn how to shift your mood, break negative thought patterns, and identify beliefs and stories so that you can explore the truthfulness of these stories. Go to andreamichelle.com/powerful to download this free guide today.